like to introduce one of our special guests. Dr. T. Hamid Al-Bayati will be our moderator this evening. Dr. Bayati is a visiting professor in the Department of Political Science at Rutgers University. He was the permanent representative of Iraq to the United Nations from April 2006 to April 2013. He's worked as the Deputy Foreign Minister for Political Affairs and Bilateral Relations from 2004 to 2006. During that period, he headed the Iraqi Center for Strategic Studies. Now, we're a little bit late getting started tonight, and I could read about 4 more paragraphs. But Ambassador Al-Bayati said, you can all look him up on Google to learn the rest. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ambassador Al-Bayati, who will introduce our speaker this evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kernan, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending this meeting. First of all, I would like to thank everybody in Fairleigh Dickinson University, especially Dr. Murphy, and of course, Dr. Kernan, to give me this opportunity to introduce a colleague and a friend, Ambassador Dazra Parkaya, Permanent Representative of Indonesia to the United Nations. Dr. Parkaya assumed his post as the Indonesian Ambassador Permanent Representative to the United Nations in New York on December 21st, 2011. We worked together almost a year and a half, and then I left my position in April last year to join Rutgers University as visiting professor. Previously, Dr. Parkaya has been serving as an ambassador, deputy permanent representative of the Republic of Indonesia to the United Nations, the WTO, and other international organizations in Geneva, Switzerland, from September 2009 to December 2011. He was born in Malang on April 20th, 1961. He is married with 3 children. He began his career with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia in 1986. Prior to his present assignment from 2007 to 2009, he acted as the Director of International Security and Disarmament, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His main responsibilities were to help steer Indonesian foreign policy on the issues of international security, disarmament, and weapon of mass destruction, transnational organized crime, and combating terrorism. I know you have the detailed bio of the ambassador, but I just want to highlight the most important stations in his life. During his current tenure as an ambassador permanent representative to the United Nations in New York, he has assumed various positions, namely Vice President of ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council, 2012, Chairman of the First Committee, which deal with international security and disarmament, co-facilitator on human rights treaty bodies, and Chairman of the Working Group on Disarmament of the Non-Aligned Movement. Throughout his career, he has handled Indonesian policies in various multilateral forums, particularly in the fields of international peace and security, disarmament, human rights, economic development, as well as social and humanitarian affairs. Dr. Parkaya obtained a doctorate of philosophy from Durham University in the United Kingdom in 2000, a master's degree in diplomacy from Birmingham University, United Kingdom, 1996, and a bachelor's degree from the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Erlangen University, Surabaya, 1985. He also obtained a diploma on multilateral negotiation from the Graduate Institute of International Studies, Geneva University, Switzerland, in 1990. Please welcome Ambassador Parkaya, and please, Ambassador, the floor is yours. Please welcome him with applause. It's up to you.
Dr. Al-Bayati, first of all, thank you very much for a very kind, generous introduction. And also let me thanks Dr. Murphy and also Dr. Kiran for inviting me to this beautiful university. When I look at you, I realize I'm very old now, Doctor. I remember like 20, 30 years ago, I was at the university, more or less about your age. I think it was the best time, and enjoy it, enjoy your study. This is my very strong message. Education is very important. If you look at what's going on in the United Nations, people talking about MDGs, if many of you are aware, education is very important. And now we are talking about sustainable development goals. Be sure education will be there, and youth will also be the priority. So I think I'm very happy to be here. I have to begin with apology because I think you know very well, Ambassador, if you go to the United Nations, we have never started the meeting punctual. I think I'm very sorry I have to spread the virus here, but the traffic was the excuse for me. I'm just wondering if you could raise your hand, how many of you have been to Indonesia? It's the only one. I hope if I ask you, where is Indonesia, you're not going to indicate in the African continent. No, right? Okay. That's why geography is very important. Understanding other people, other cultures, geography is very important. I come from Indonesia. I think this is also very closely related with the mission of the Fairleigh Dickinson University. The mission is a center of academic excellence dedicated to the preparation of world citizens through global education. It is a very good mission. I think you are lucky that you study here at a very good university with a very noble mission. I come from the country in Southeast Asia. If you are not fully aware of the map of the world, this is the globe. The United States is here, and Indonesia is exactly the opposite side of the globe. The time difference is 12 hours, exactly 12 hours. Very often, my minister call me at 12 o'clock midnight, but in Indonesia it's working time at noon. This is just to show you the distance and also the time difference. In terms of population, we have 243.8 million. It's a huge population. It is also called as the world's fourth biggest country in the world. Indonesia is also the largest Muslim population in the world. If you combine all Middle East countries, including Iraq, Ambassador, I think we have more Muslims population in the world. Indonesia is also the world's largest archipelago. I have to quote, with the number of islands, 13,466 islands. If you want to travel to Indonesia, if you want to stay in Indonesia and visit through a journey, you can go visit each of the island. If you spend one night in each of island, at the end of the day, you have to spend 38 years. So this is the massiveness of our country. It is the 16th largest economy in the world, and also now is member of G20. I do not need to go to details on the GDP. I think also the economic growth, etc. I think I can share with you the handout later on. Foreign policy, certainly, it was very much constructed by our location, our geography, and also historical. That's why for Indonesia, from the very beginning, we have the principle, what we call it, free and active foreign policy, in which we are not depending on any other power during the Cold War, and also we are independent in making our own decision, free and active foreign policy. In our foreign policy also, it has been also been through various period. If you look at Indonesia since independence, it was led by the first president through what we call it led democracy. And we also have been under the authoritarian military regime for 32 years, very long. Then in 1998, we became democracy. After various democratization process, and also after the governance participation of people. When you talk about foreign policy, I think you know very well, foreign policy doesn't live in vacuum. It is closely related to our domestic politics as well as the international dynamics. So from the very beginning, the dynamics between domestic and international politics always characterize and also guide our foreign policy. In the foreign policy, as I said, what are the international dynamics? Certainly, the existence of remaining what we call it a traditional threat, non-traditional threats, multipolar configuration, there is no one dominant power in the world, emergence of non-state actors, terrorists, multinational company, private companies, civil society, they also play their part. Globalization is very important, and also the interdependence. We are also conducting through various bilateral relations. We do have more than 180 diplomatic relations with 193 member states of the United Nations. We do also have strategic partnership, including with the US, Japan, China, Russia, etc. If you look at the foreign policy itself, in the beginning, we focus ourselves to the neighbor, in which Southeast Asia. For that reason, in 1967, we established Southeast Asia Nation, Southeast Asia Association, what we call it ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asia Nation, in 1967. The advantage of having a regional organization such as ASEAN was that there has been no war since 1967 up to now among the 10 countries in the region. For that reason, each of the member states of ASEAN has been able to channel their energy, their resources for development. This is a good thing about ASEAN. ASEAN has also developed its organization. Now it is more of a rule-based organization. We have also a charter of the ASEAN that has been ratified by all of the member countries. ASEAN has also become the driving force of the East Asia architecture. ASEAN also has been very central on many activities in the region. Apart from ASEAN, there is also Asia Pacific Economic Forum, in which the market forces has been the driving force of trade liberalization between countries in the Asia and Pacific, including the US. You know very well as well, in the region, you have countries which are very developed, such as Japan, such as Korea, such as China. But we do also have countries that are still underdeveloped, such as in the Pacific region, Laos, Cambodia, etc. But we do also have a gap of development in the field of disarmament, in the field of democracy. For this reason, Indonesia initiated what we call it Bali Democracy Forum, the meeting in Bali, in which we can share our experience in promoting democracy. We can share also our experience, not only on the success side, but also on the failure to embrace democracy, governance, and rule of law. This is what we call it Bali Democracy Forum. Other pillars of Indonesian foreign policy, also non-aligned movement. I think the name of President Sukarno, Gamal Abdel Nasser from Egypt, and Nkrumah from Ghana, Nehru from India, and Joseph Broz Tito from Yugoslavia. They were the founding fathers of non-aligned movement. In the beginning, the non-aligned movement, their cooperation was very much on the political dimension, in which they are not taking side to the East Bloc or the West Bloc, but they are more independent. And now their orientation and their work has been reinvigorated towards economic development and also inequalities in the world. Other international organization that we are working on and we are very actively involved is the, what we call it, Organization of the Islamic Cooperation. This is among the countries, 57 Islamic countries or states with a majority of Muslim. The basic idea is helping the Palestinian independence and also the Al-Quds Al-Sarif, the question of East Jerusalem. This has been the core of the issue of the OIC, Organization of the Islamic Conference. Now, let me move to the Indonesia and the United Nations. What is our role in the United Nations? At least I can share with you there are four. First, we always present ourselves as a bridge builder. We always present ourselves as part of the solution, a balance or compromise between conflicting interests, and to be a moderating voice in the United Nations. If I could share with you on the United Nations, I think Ambassador Al-Bayati would add a little more later on. Basically, I can categorize the work in the United Nations into three baskets of issues. First, what we call it political security. You can quote the issue of Security Council. You can say about Iran. You can say about Syria now, Palestine, conflict in Africa. This is what we call it political security. The second basket is economic development. You are talking about MDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, about environment, about social inclusion and others. And the last part is what we call it human rights and rule of law. We play our part in each of the pillars, and we still continue negotiating on a number of basic human rights standards. We are also still working on the comprehensive convention on terrorism. We haven't been able to agree on the convention, and also on many other issues. With regard to the terrorism, I think I would like also to share with you that Indonesia will host what you call it Global Forum on the Alliance of Civilization. United Nations has paid a very strong interest on the promotion of interfaith dialogue among religious and faith, and for that reason we are going to host the Global Forum on Alliance of Civilization in end of August later this year. In conclusion, I think I can at least make three conclusions. First, globalization and interdependence create international challenges, and these international challenges cannot be resolved by one country. For that reason, countries or member states, they have to work together in order to resolve international challenges. Secondly, I do believe the importance and primacy of dialogue, peaceful solution, and cooperation. If you ask me later on about the question of Syria, I do strongly believe, I do still believe, there is no force that can resolve the Syrian case. There is no use of force that can create sustainable peace in Syria. And lastly, the linkages between political security, economic development, rule of law, and human rights, they are closely related, they are mutually reinforcing, and they are interdependent. This is more or less what I would like to share, Ambassador Al-Bayati, and I'm more interested in the question and answer session. And shoot me, ask me any question, and I can give you my honest answer as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Parkaya. But let me start by mentioning the issue of the age when you said comparing with the young students here, you are the oldest. I was talking to Dr. Murphy before we start that I visited Indonesia in 2005. It was 50 years after the summit of Bandung, which took place in 1955, when the leaders like Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, Jawaharlal Nehru of India, Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, and of course President Sukarno of Indonesia have the first summit of the non-aligned movement. And Dr. Murphy said, you must have been very young then. She thought, I was in Indonesia in 1955. So I told her, the only way I could be in Indonesia in 1955 if my mother was pregnant with me and she was visiting. So it's happened that in 2005, I had the honor to represent Iraq in the summit called 50 Years After Bandung. And at that time, we had elections in Iraq. So neither the president, nor the prime minister, or even our foreign minister wanted to go because they were, negotiating a new government. And this is, you could imagine, this is the first government after the fall of Saddam regime in 2003. The poor deputy foreign minister has to go and talk to all the leaders and the presidents there. But the government then gave me a nice picture, which still I frame and put in my office, my picture with all the leaders in the summit of 2005. Not only that, but in 1955, those great leaders have a march when they walk from the place of the summit to another place, which we did again 50 years later. So Dr. Murphy tried to add 50 years to my age, you would imagine. And I told her if I was that old, I wouldn't be able to make it today to Fairleigh Dickinson University. Ambassador, my first question, the non-allied movement, it was so important back in 1955, especially in the peak of the Cold War. And those leaders try to say, we are neither with the East nor with the West, not with the communist and Soviet bloc or with the Western, bloc. Now, after the end of the Cold War, how do you see the role of non-aligned movement, especially you have a position in that movement, and how you can see the role of that movement internationally and at the United Nations?
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think age can also be judged by the thickness of hair. So I think I can claim that I'm older than you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Very good question. The history of the establishment of non-aligned movement, you rightly pointed out, it was neither pro the West nor the East. Since the collapse of Cold War, then there was also a question, the relevance of non-aligned movement. Maybe it's already obsolete at that time, or it is irrelevant. But there was also inside the members, among the members, we did some kind of revisiting. What is the purpose of non-aligned movement in the light of rationale for its establishment has disappeared? The non-aligned movement, I would dare to say, it is still relevant because apparently it is not about politics. It is also about economic development. It is about injustice. It is also about promotion of human rights and also about creating and establishing international peace and security. So there is a kind of reinvigoration of the purpose, recalibration of the purpose, and also the objective of the non-aligned movement. I take the example of if you are following the what we call it Treaty on Non-Proliferation or Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT). It was established under in the condition of Cold War, but unfortunately, the mentality of the implementation of NPT remains the same. It is those with nuclear weapons and those are not, and the mentality towards total elimination of nuclear weapons almost non-existent, I would say. If I dare even to ask again, do we need nuclear weapons now? What is the reason to have nuclear weapons, to retain nuclear weapons? Even you are U.S. citizens, you can ask your government, do we really need the nuclear weapons now? And what this is for? Is it deterrent? Is it really for deterrent? But you also may quote that, look, this is part of the business. Military business, a huge hell lot of money. I think you can say that. So the logic of the establishment on the rivalry, the Cold War, East-West, no longer there. But if you look at the mentality, and in order to establish international peace and security, we are still facing a difficulty. Now, if you look at the current situation, the international dynamics, look at the U.S. And Russian relations. Are they really at peace? Are they really working together with regard to peace and security? And I can also ask one of the reasons why. What is the problem? What is the issues underlying our difficulties to resolve the issue on Syria? Because there is no unity among the P5, there is no agreement among the American and Russian. So the mentality is still there. So again, there has been some question and also rethinking in among the non-aligned movement. But then my answer is it is still relevant after the non-aligned movement has done some kind of calibration and reinvigoration on their principal objective.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. The second question I have, I'm still in the international arena. You said Indonesia is going to host the Global Forum of Alliance of Civilization. And we all know that, unfortunately, we see many conflicts all over the world. While we are one big family, and according to all holy books, we were born from one grandfather and one grandmother, Adam and Eve, we still see conflicts in many places in the world, especially in the Middle East now. Iraq, you see every day there is news about car bombs in Syria, in Libya, in many countries. So my question is, this Forum of Alliance of Civilization, how much do you think it will play a role in bringing peace to the world, and especially to places like the Middle East?
Thank you, Ambassador. I think I cannot answer in terms of time frame when and what will be the impact. We are talking about investing in the longer future terms. If you look at the next meeting in Indonesia, in Bali, the theme will be unity in diversity. I think it's very close to the US motto, E pluribus. What's it, Dr. Murphy? E pluribus unum. I think it's very similar. Unity in diversity. And in this kind of activity, we are going to focus on, among others, at least I can say that one which is very important, youth. Youth is going to be the target of this meeting. And it relates also the question of Middle East. I think if you look at the Middle East, the question Middle East is not purely about politics. But if you look at the underlying concern in the Middle East is about youth. They have been deprived from job. They have been deprived from political process. They are a force of changes. So this is in relation that to the alliance of civilization, we are going to invest and we continue to invest in the development of youth to be heard and to be engaged with regard to the promotion of dialogue among various faiths, various religions. And again, youth are very, very important. I'm not saying that we are going to have immediate impact, but perhaps the peace in Middle East will be able to be realized not at our time, let's say within 10, 20, 30 years ago, 20 years to the future. But I do believe, and UN believes, that you have to invest in youth.
Okay, Ambassador, one question regarding the most important bilateral relation between Indonesia and the United States. Back in 2010, President Obama and President Cecilio Bambang Yudhoyono inaugurated the U.S.-Indonesian Comprehensive Partnership, which has fostered constant high-level engagement on issues related to democracy and civil society, education, security, climate and environment, energy and trade issues, among others. How is the relation between Indonesia and the United States now?
First, if you start from President Obama, I think he spent some time when he was at the primary school in Indonesia, in Jakarta. So it was his normative years to live in Indonesia. So,
but he wasn't born in Indonesia, was
no,
he?
he wasn't. He's American citizen. He's American citizen. He was born in Hawaii, I think, right?
Yes,
in Hawaii. But he followed his mother and his stepfather to move to Indonesia. He spent some time in Jakarta, in Indonesia, and he speaks my language. I share with you a funny story. Last September, it was a high-level debate in the General Assembly. All the presidents, all the kings, whoever they are gathering together at the United Nations. I was waiting for my foreign minister, and then there is a group of people with the very tight security guard. Then in the middle of this group, it was President Obama, and I spoke in my language, in Bahasa Indonesia, more or less, Mr. President, how are you? Then he said in our language, very well, thank you. And then he came to see me, and then he shook my hand. He shook my hand. I was shocked, right? I was startled. So I should have taken a photograph, but I didn't.
No, should have taken the photograph for you.
Even my colleague who was standing in my opposite direction, he was also shocked. He didn't realize how warm he is and how spontaneous he is. And also the language that he still memorizes, he still remember our language. So from the high level, I think the relation is very good between the U.S. and Indonesia. Strategic partnership, this is the basic foundation for Indonesia and U.S. to further develop, to expand and deepen bilateral relations on many issues. And the last thing that we are going to work together is on climate change. I think last week, Secretary of State, Secretary Kerry, came to Jakarta, and we agreed on certain steps on promoting climate change. I think this is very, very important. On people to people, I think we do not have any problem with the U.S. I think we are very close. However, there is a problem of, not a problem, a challenge in which the U.S. needs to do more. If you look at the Indonesian, ordinary Indonesian, they do not have a clear idea the dynamics politic of U.S. For example, U.S. has been seen as arrogant superpower. They often use force instead of dialogue. They are very much difficult to deal with. I think this is about the perception, the perception. And also, U.S. is very much or heavily supporting the Israeli policies with regard to Palestine. This is more or less the perception. So about PR. And also with regard to the other issue, for example, on the WMD, I think we encourage the U.S. to take the lead also on this area of cooperation. But more or less, I think the relation is very good on economic fit as well, people to people, cultural, etc. And at the highest level, I think the relations are excellent.
Well, Ambassador, you took me to the next question. When Secretary of State John Kerry on 17th of February this year urged Indonesia to take steps to combat climate change, warning that failure to act could jeopardize nations' resources and damage its economy. Indonesia is the third largest producer of greenhouse gases after China and the United States. How Indonesia will manage to do that?
If you look at the 2007 climate change conference in Bali, I think we have been able to agree on the Bali roadmap, certainly reducing the emission as well as temperature. Our president, our government also has made a very strong commitment on the reducing emission, 26% by 2020 and 41% by 2020 with international support. The commitment is there. But again, in order to successfully combat and promote climate change, we cannot do ourselves. I think we have to work together. This is more or less, and this is what is prevailing in the United Nations now. We have very good MDGs, we have very good international agreements, but the question is, how about the implementation? I think Indonesia is one of the developing countries as well. We cannot do things by ourselves, but there has to be also cooperation with international community. Again, climate change is not only the issue for Indonesia. I think this is the issue of international community. And again, for you, you are very young. You are part of the youth. I think beware of this danger of and the threat of climate change. It's very strange now in New York. I think even American, they have never experienced this kind of winter. When I check with my colleague in Europe, I think it's very strange winter as well in Europe. So this is about climate change. To have some interest, have interest on this issue as well. This is very important. This is a cross-national border. This is not only the US. This is not only Indonesia, but this is our common problem and common threat.
Ambassador, my last question is regional. You know, the major issue in Indonesia was the independence of East Timor or Timor-Leste. And I remember we attended a meeting with the former president of East Timor, President Horthy. It happened that I was in London. I was based in London during Saddam regime time, and President Horthy used to come to London. We had a common friend who was a member of the British Parliament, Anne Clwyd. And we supported at that time the issue of independence of Timor-Leste as much as the British Parliament support them and they support the Iraqi opposition against Saddam regime. And I remember vividly you said in that meeting that although you were official and the foreign minister of Indonesia, you supported the independence of Timor-Leste, which is a unique position. So many of the people in the United States maybe didn't know about this problem, how it's evolved. In short, brief description, could you enlighten the students and us about the issue of Timor-Leste, how they became independent and all that issues?
Well, historically and legally, East Timor has never been part of Indonesia. When we were under the authoritarian regime, and also because of the uh, containment policy against communism, the regime at that time decided to intervene East Timor, to annex East Timor, because there was a kind of indication in which the Communist political party will win. So we were afraid of what you call it, domino theory at that time. I think you remember very well the communists at that time. East Timor has never been part of Indonesia legally, and it was the annexation was done under the undemocratic government, I would say. So it was the history. We made mistake. We also confessed that we did it. But then we have been able to develop a good relation with East Timor, now become Timor-Leste. And we certainly support the independence of Timor-Leste, but we know it very well, East Timor has never been part of Indonesia. For us, it is very important now to have a strong, stable, and democratic Timor-Leste. I think this is also our common objective, to work together. No matter what, like it or not, we are neighbors and we have to have a good relations. We also support Timor-Leste to become or to be member of ASEAN. There is still dynamic discussion among the ASEAN member countries, but we are the strong proponent that East Timor or Timor-Leste has to be member of ASEAN. Our countries are in good terms. We are now more of forward-looking relations, building the future together. I think this has been very good, and also at the level of elite, head of government, head of state, the relations are very good. People to people, business also are very good.
Ambassador, you remind me of the situation between Iraq and Kuwait when Saddam dictatorship invaded Kuwait in 1990, and Saddam annexed the country, deleted from the map. He announced that that's one of Iraq's provinces. And then we opposed, as Iraqis, the invasion. The whole world opposed the invasion because it was some kind of aggression. And then the Security Council considered Iraq, as a result of the invasion, as a threat to peace and security. And the Security Council adopted more than 80 resolutions, 80 resolutions against Iraq, 73 of these resolutions under Chapter 7. And Chapter 7 authorized the Security Council to impose sanctions and to use force. So the United States set up an alliance to liberate Kuwait, but the sanctions continue from 1990 until 2010. It took me between 2006 to 2010 hard work to convince the Security Council to lift the sanctions in December 15, 2010. So this is when you have a dictatorial, brutal regime. This is the result. We paid a heavy price. Iraq still has a heavy burden, which we inherited from Saddam. We had 8 years war with Iran, invasion of Kuwait, liberation of Kuwait, Desert Storm, Desert Fox. From 1980 until 2003, for 23 years, we have war and another war and another war, and we inherited a debt of $150 billion and more than $53 billion compensation for the invasion of Kuwait. We still pay 5% of our total revenue every year to the United Nations Compensation Commission, UNCC in Geneva, as a compensation to the invasion of Kuwait. So with that, I will conclude my discussion with the ambassador, and you can see how Ambassador Perkaya managed to have a high level education in all fields in addition to his experience in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the United Nations in Geneva, WTO. Now he's a permanent representative at the UN. So the best thing for you young students who will be leaders of our future is to learn from his wisdom and experience. And please give him a round of applause again.